Okay, folks, I don't know if this post is necessary, but I feel that with the conclusion of the Rippaverse lawsuit, in which Good Shepherd Ministries was suing Rippaverse for infringing on its trademark Isom, which stands for International School of Ministry, uh, now that that has come to a conclusion, and we're getting all sorts of, fluff from the Rippaverse haters who are trying to say that Eric's taking the L on this one, and Eric protesting that he's not, that this is just an out of court settlement, and therefore there's no loss involved. I feel like it's incumbent upon me to explain how I understand it to the best of my ability. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I do have a friend who has a degree in intellectual property law, and so I've gotten some advisement on the matter. But I don't necessarily want you to think that what I'm going to say is in any way authoritative. And by all means, post in the comments if you think I've just gotten anything flat wrong. There's a couple things that Eric July said in his latest video that he's calling statements of fact, and one of the things is that the settlement, the fact that they have agreed to a settlement, does not constitute a loss. He is not taking the L. That's technically true in the sense that because this case never actually went to court, well, then no guilty verdict, which would have been the actual L, no guilty verdict was ever rendered by a judge or a jury. But that doesn't mean that there was no loss on Rippaverse's part. I mean, you can't have a settlement unless either side agrees to do things for the other. And the losses occur on both sides, and the gains occur on both sides. So let me explain how that works. Rippaverse has to do something now. We don't know what that is because we have no idea what the terms of the settlement are. We're only being told little dribs and drabs so far as what I guess the parties are legally allowed to tell us. Because there's probably a non-disclosure agreement somewhere within the body of the settlement that says we can't talk about this publicly. That's just standard par for the course, although I think it would have been valuable. I know Eric July has been huge on transparency, so why not post the, if it were to be allowed by the other party, why not post the agreement just in public, because that way nobody could say anything that was factually false about the agreement. But, it is what it is. It's standard for the terms of the settlements like this to remain something secret, and that's just the way it is. So, without knowing the terms of the settlement, we can't know what it is that Rippaverse's obligations to Good Shepherd Ministries is going forward. But there has to be some. There has to be some. Or else this whole case never would have come in the first place. And there wouldn't even be a need for a settlement. The whole idea of a settlement is to say, okay, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this. So, Eric July has been adamant about the fact that no money is changing hands in this settlement. Now, we don't know, of course, whether or not that's true, but let's assume that that's true. Because really, there's no reason to lie about that. Because somebody's going to find a bank transaction or something on the books someday in the future if that's not true, and he's going to wind up with egg on his face. But let's just look at what else could happen in the case of a settlement. Well, what is the problem in the first place? Well, the problem in the first place was that the comic book Isom shares the name of the trademark Isom that belongs to Good Shepherd Ministries, who has the International School of Ministry. They actually have a website, isom.org, out there. If anyone were to be looking for Isom on the internet, thinking that they were going to get the International School of Ministry, they might accidentally get directed to the Rippaverse, and anybody looking for the comic book might actually get directed to the ministry. So there has been the potential for confusion, and the International School of Ministry, or Good Shepherd Ministries, has asserted that confusion has occurred with the trademark, and therefore there has been a trademark infringement. Now, what can they do to resolve that trademark infringement? Well, you can get kind of creative in this, but here is what I think the barest minimum kind of loss, quote unquote, on Rippaverse's part that Rippaverse may have incurred. It may be that the International School of Ministry, Good Shepherd Ministries, has told the Rippaverse, in your comics from now on, anything that includes Isom, the character, in your comics, or mention of Isom in your comics, now has to include a disclaimer. And this disclaimer has to be printed somewhere visible in the book that says, Isom is a registered trademark of Good Shepherd Ministries and the International School of Ministry. And neither the title, nor the contents of this book, nor the Rippaverse character Isom have any affiliation whatsoever with Good Shepherd Ministries or the International School of Ministry. If you would like to learn more about the International School of Ministry, please visit isom.org. And that may be it. That may be the whole sum and substance of what Rippaverse now has to do from now on. Now, is that a loss, really? Well, it's certainly not a financial loss, okay? It's not an L in that sense. And no court imposed this, and Rippaverse would have agreed to this. And again, I'm speaking purely hypothetically. I don't know that this is actually the case. I'm just using this as an example. But look at it from Good Shepherd Ministries' perspective if they were to impose this kind of condition. They've just gotten free advertising for their ministry, isom.org, in every Rippaverse book that comes out from now on. And so long as Rippaverse puts that disclaimer in their books, then they're basically giving up the right to pursue any further legal action against the Rippaverse. And that's the loss that's incurred on Good Shepherd Ministries' part. So there's actually a loss incurred on both sides in an out-of-court settlement. On one hand, the defendant, which is in this case Rippaverse, is saying, okay, I will agree to your conditions that restrict my actions, and Good Shepherd Ministries, the plaintiff in this case, is saying, I will give up my right to pursue further legal action against you. And so that puts both of the players on an even keel. They've both lost something in that Rippaverse now has to do this thing for Good Shepherd Ministries that they previously didn't before, and that's going to take a little bit of work. It's going to take, maybe a little bit of humiliation, in the sense that this happened in the first place. But on the other side, you've got Good Shepherd Ministries, and they've lost the ability to pursue future legal action, including like monetary reparations or things like that. So they've lost a little something on both sides, but they've gained a little something on both sides. So Rippaverse has gained freedom from the fear that they're going to get sued again by Good Shepherd Ministries, and Good Shepherd Ministries is getting this free advertising for isom.org. And again, I'm only saying that's hypothetical. I'm not saying this has actually taken place. But if that agreement were to be the case, then you would have both a win-win and lose-lose situation at the same time. And it's something that's acceptable to both parties, and therefore both parties will probably look at this as a win, even though they both lost something in the exchange. So is this a loss? Is this settlement an L? Well, yes and no. Again, this is not the loss of a case. This is not a guilty verdict. This is not an admission of guilt, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But what it is basically an exchange of duties and a giving up of a little bit of something on both sides. So what Eric can't say is that he has not lost anything in that, because either he's lost some amount of money, which he says he has not, or he's lost some amount of freedom, which I'm thinking is more probably the case as far as how his books are to be printed going forward. And again, it may be nothing more than that. It may be nothing more than that disclaimer. So, that being said, what's the other thing that Eric has been saying that is a little bit confusing? What he's been saying is that there was never a trademark infringement in the first place, and that there was no wrongdoing in the first place. Now, in an out-of-court settlement, it is absolutely true that neither party is required to affirm, and in some cases may be allowed to affirm, that such and such offense, in this case trademark infringement, has actually taken place. So if Eric July comes forward and says, this never happened, there was never any confusion, there was no trademark infringement, yada, 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 So long as the settlement itself does not bar him from saying such a thing, then he can put forward that narrative. And at the same time, the International School of Ministry, Good Shepherd Ministries, as long as they're not barred from saying so by the settlement, they can step forward and say, yeah, he did infringe upon our trademark, but we settled it and we're all good now. So there's nothing, as long as there's nothing in the settlement restricting Eric July's language concerning the facts of the case, considering the facts on the ground, he can say whatever he wants then. He can push whatever narrative he wants. Now, if the settlement requires him not to claim that there was no infringement, then he may be in a little bit of trouble. And it's kind of funny because if you watch his latest and final video on the matter, you can see he actually kind of chokes up at the point where he's about to say there was no trademark infringement. It's almost like he's like, there was no, can I legally say this? Trademark infringement. and I wonder what the settlement actually says regarding such language. I hope he hasn't just taken a shotgun to another one of his toes. But that may be the case, and we may see another video in the future where he's clarifying his final clarification, and I'm hoping that would be final because I'm really getting sick of these videos. I mean, these are not apologies he's putting out, but they definitely are apologetics, if you know what I mean. Oh my gosh, I'm just so sick of the whole matter. I'm just really, really glad that Rippaverse and Good Shepherd Ministries have come to an agreement. And this agreement apparently will allow Rippaverse to go forward as it has planned to, publishing comics, especially Isom number 3, under the name Isom, using the character called Isom. And in that way, everything's good. And I don't need to know the details of the case any more than I need to know at this point what Avery Sellman's powers are, because I'm just rapidly losing interest in the character still altogether. But anyway, I just wanted to make this video just to make it hopefully clear, because what kind of bothers me is when Eric July comes forward and he makes these statements, these statements of fact, and saying things like there was no trademark infringement. That to me, I don't know, it almost reminds me of, if you ever see a sexual harassment case where you have a woman accusing a man or a man accusing a woman, it could be either way, or same sex, and yeah, it's a complicated world. But let's just take the standard story of a woman accuses a man of sexual harassment. Okay. If I'm the man, and I settle out of court, then I want something in that settlement that says she can no longer accuse me publicly of sexual harassment. Because the whole reason I'm settling is because even though I might think that I have a good enough case to win, or maybe I don't think I have a good enough case to win and I just want to buy her off, the thing that I'm trying to get rid of is the sexual harassment claim. And if I don't at least get rid of that, then what have I really bought myself? Except, maybe a finite judgment on what I'm about to lose. So, in this case where, the woman, on the other hand, might want to say that I cannot definitively state that I did not sexually harass her. I might be able to say that, well, we settled that out of court and nobody's affirming any wrongdoing on my part. That would be a legally defensible statement. But if there's legal language in the settlement that were to say, well, he can't say that he didn't sexually harass me because that would be an untrue statement, well then I would be in trouble if I were to go out there and say, see, we settled out of court, there was no sexual harassment. I would be in trouble under the conditions of the settlement in that respect. So that's got, that portion still has me a little worried about Eric July's public statements and the fact that he keeps making these public statements, and when the best possible thing to do is just shut the fuck up and publish comics. I mean, seriously, that's the best possible statement. And I'll bet his lawyers are sitting at home right now realizing he just published another video and saying, oh, God damn it, will the man just shut the fuck up? I have to say, That's probably what's going on right now in those lawyers' homes. I don't envy them one bit. Oh, God. So, hopefully, what we have seen is the end of the matter. Hopefully, what we have seen is the last that we need to hear of it. And what will really be interesting is when we see Isom number 3 or even possibly Yaira number 1. I'm not exactly sure whether those books have gone to print yet. But keep an eye out and just see if there happens to be a disclaimer out there that mentions the International School of Ministry and maybe even directs you to their website. I would be tickled pink if that's actually what happened. And imagine having to give somebody free advertising in your comic book in perpetuity, like forever, with every single issue. Oh man. And all you had to do was make a trademark search, and you would have discovered this in the beginning. And, probably shouldn't say this, but it's also entirely possible that Eric July did do the trademark search, and he saw it come up and said, they care about it so much they can sue me. And they did. Whoo, my. Oh, what a tangled web we weave. So, all right, that's all I want to say on it. I just wanted to tell you my understanding of how things have gone down. And honestly, I wish both parties the best, and I don't want to see either of them, negatively impacted by the results of this. From a financial standpoint, Rippaverse ought to stand or fall on its own merits. It should not be taken out in any kind of court case, and kind of like Defiant was back in the day, or even back as, Fawcett Comics was back in the day, who originally published Shazam and got sued out of existence by DC Comics. I don't want to see that happen to the Rippaverse. I want the Rippaverse to stand or fall on its own merits, and now I think it's finally going to have the chance to do that. So, is it producing good quality work? Well, I've got a couple of videos out on Alpha Core number 1, so go take a look at those and see what I've come up with so far. I'm only 10 pages into the book. I'm hoping to get into it more possibly tomorrow or the next day, and you'll be seeing more review videos from me in due time. Thank you for watching. I'm Mike Partika. Please do subscribe for future updates, and hopefully the audio is better on this video than it's been. I've been told that when I do just these recordings into my computer and I'm not going through the XSplit broadcaster software, that my audio comes through clearly. I'm hoping that's the case. If it's not, please let me know. I want to know what the audio quality is like for this video. It's going to be, tweaking and going until I find out just what the heck is wrong. Thanks again. Please do subscribe, and I will talk to you later.